Good evening. I'm Marlene Snowman. You probably guessed that. By my uniform, or I guess my boots. As a career police officer, many would think I'm not easily intimidated, but I want you to know that this is intimidating. Being up here on stage and sharing this evening with 7 truly amazing women, and you. It reminds me, though, of a memory that makes me smile. When as a teenager at SeaWorld, my mother volunteered me to go on a stage. Surprisingly, an opportunity that allowed me to kiss a walrus. Smack, yes, smack on the lips. Fitting, perhaps, to now be a part of a talk bearing that animal's name. The police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. An interesting quote. One that I believe to be more relevant today than it was in 1829, when Sir Robert Peel documented it as one of the 9 principles intended to guide police in terms of their mandate, interaction with citizens, use of force, and their role in the overall criminal justice system. Let's think about that. The police are the community, and the community are the police. That's more than to serve and protect, although popular and catchy, and visually depicts the police standing on the outside with our back to the community, looking outward while protecting it. Our position now is not one on the outside, looking outward, but rather one on the inside, engaged with, enabling, empowering, mobilizing. This is a different model, a relatively emergent model, on which conversations and relationships are hinged, with trust as the cornerstone. It isn't an us versus them, or you. It's a we dialogue. Real community engagement and collaboration, whereby solving the problem and making a positive impact is the goal. Community safety is the goal, not a means. The real conversation is that we're contributing to community safety with you and not policing of you. Of course, community safety is individually perceived. What I may consider important, you may not, and the person in the seat next to you may have a completely different view. I recall in 2012, while conducting an in-depth community survey to establish priorities in Kodiak, having a conversation with a lady and her likely then 13-year-old daughter. The mom indicated that her main concern was road safety, while her daughter said it was about murders. It's all a matter of perspective based on your own personal experience, not right or wrong, just individual. Maybe some envision community safety as a location where there are no crimes, no victims, where children can play anywhere. Families are well-fed, well-dressed, and there is no social dysfunction. I'm not so naive as to believe that we can attain that level, and likely most of you would agree. But I know that working collaboratively and partnering with community groups and agencies that we can together, and yes, make a significant positive difference. Certainly more so than working alone and in silos. Community safety is really about family, feeling safe in your home, in your school, in your workplace, on the internet, where everyone is valued and considered important. It's accountability. It's connected with your neighbors, although I think I'm starting to sound like the Riverview Neighborhood Watch. It's about doing it differently, and yet together. We know that social issues have no boundaries, so why are we so intent on giving them some? I don't think I'm saying anything new, just that community priorities require a system change so that we have local solutions that are long-term. It's about realizing that this can work, this does work. This is working in the Atlantic as well as in other provinces. Having started in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and based on a UK model, best known in Nova Scotia as a hybrid hub model. Let me give you an example. Sackville Detachment in Nova Scotia has been dealing with a 12-year-old boy and a family, on average, 5 times a week. The RCMP brought this youth's name forward at a Sackville hybrid hub meeting. As a group, they spoke about what they knew. The youth came from a very large family. His father was present, but not a good role model, and his mother did not have adequate parenting skills. The issue was clear. The youth needed assistance. The hybrid hub contacted the parents and invited them into the discussion, and they were willing to cooperate. As a result, the parents were placed in parenting classes offered by the Department of Community Services, and the son, well, he was put in touch with a positive male role model through Big Brothers Big Sisters. He was also sent to a local week-long summer camp, where he was so surrounded by positive youth peers and enjoyed it so much that he asked to stay on another week. Since being involved with the hybrid hub model, the Sackville RCMP has had 0 calls in relation to that youth and his family. This has positively impacted the youth, his family, the court, potential victims in the community, and policing resources. And this is just one of many examples. Not overly complicated, not requiring much. Will you see him again? Will we see him again? Maybe, but we have a connection. Truthfully, this isn't our mandate. So why is law enforcement concerned with this? Well, research has demonstrated that there is a long-term community impact, a financial impact, a societal impact, so all good reasons to be involved. However, oftentimes, and unfortunately, we're called because we're the last resort. We have taken this on because many others won't or can't. Or is it because we care? But how do we connect? Well, the demonstration that is most apparent was in Moncton following the tragedy of June 4th, and a situation I know firsthand. I had just arrived home from work and was removing my uniform when I received the call of an active shooter in Moncton with members hit and injured. Necessary calls were made and resources deployed, and a neighborhood locked down for more than 30 hours in the hunt for the person responsible. A horrific ordeal that took the lives of 3 fine police officers, Dave Ross, Doug Larch, and Fabrice Gévaudan, who were also wonderful husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, and colleagues. 2 others were physically injured, and a whole community, no, a whole country, was impacted. Through the use of social media by the RCMP in New Brunswick, the public were kept informed and apprised of what was taking place. More specifically, and more importantly, on the night of the shootings, we turned to Facebook and Twitter to reach people in the lockdown area. Waiting for print wasn't going to be helpful in the moment to share key developments, nor would that have facilitated the sharing of safety tips at regular intervals, or in dispelling misinformation. Social media allowed us to post frequent reminders asking the public not to share details of our police activities, emphasizing the risk of doing so. It was hoped that family and friends of those in the lockdown area would also be following the chatter, and that they would then in turn share details with those not having the capacity to be following themselves. No question, an invaluable tool. What was evident is that the public heard. You were listening, and you contributed. You saw. The pictures on the screen behind me show just that. Public engaged in the Lights On for Moncton plea from us. We never dreamed, though, that the support would not have been just in Moncton. Lights went on across Canada and beyond. What you may not realize is that the information and tweeting that you provided to us was valuable information related to the investigation. And moreover, that every sharing of a social media post, a community connection was formed. Everyone had a reason for connecting that night, out of fear, out of concern for someone, be it the community, the officers themselves, or the family and friends, curiosity and the desire to help, and it did. The community support and outpouring that followed was overwhelming, from the cards, gifts, money, food, coffee, flowers to the Kodiak detachment personnel. On June 5th, I was in the lobby of the detachment when one of the Corps commissioners said to me, "You should go look out the front doors, at the front steps." I did, and what I saw were a few flowers and candles. A few. Not sure if you can really see that well. By Father's Day, that had grown to cover the steps, lawn, and the sidewalk, and the kindness continued. The hugs, the handshakes, the tears. The members that had been called in from across Canada and other police forces in New Brunswick to replace the Kodiak personnel so that they could begin to grieve experienced firsthand community connection at its finest. These men and women couldn't walk anywhere without handshakes or hugs. Food tabs were covered in local restaurants as patrons recognized members and anonymously paid bills. These relief members returned to their community of origin with a different perspective, a newfound appreciation of human kindness. In the meantime, Kodiak personnel received gifts and cards at our homes with handwritten notes that expressed sorrow and condolences. I can't begin to explain the emotions and what your outpouring of support did. I can tell you that the Kodiak personnel, although absent on the streets of the tri-community following the 5th, had the ability to feel your admiration on Father's Day, as many of them lined the streets in front of the Kodiak detachment as more than 6,000 runners stopped to shake their hands and hug them prior to our dismantling of the flower vigil. At one point, as I stood at the top of the steps with members of the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority, contemplating how we were going to move things on, I gave up, recognizing that the members in the community needed that time together. The race time and the dismantling could wait. That is community connection. As a police officer, I know we don't hug much. I can tell you that on on Father's Day, I had been hugged so many times that this button on my uniform came unscrewed because so many arms had touched me. That is community connection. Trauma impacts trauma, so what gets you through? Whether you are the child involved in the hub model, a police officer with an operational stress injury, or a citizen in the lockdown zone, is community connection. It should also include seeking emotional assistance and knowing that you aren't alone. In Moncton, people may have thought they were alone. They weren't, and we weren't. And although far too many of our response is to mental health and addiction-related occurrences, we can change that. And if we, the police, can change our mindset about our response to operational stress injuries and mental health and the associated stigma, then the public can as well. Conversations like these are vital. It allows us the opportunity to tell a story, to recount feelings, and to share. And there is no question that healing occurs through speaking, not by holding the story in. The better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to thrive in times of change. And in times of extreme, resilience is what we need most. What has been created has ramifications far into the future and with significant positive impact. How long is a community willing to sustain this connection, and how will you do that? Or do you choose to? It's not just about the uniform and serving and protecting. There is much more behind this than a badge and a gun. The power of connection can be life-changing. But what a great legacy for Dave, Doug, and Fabrice. Thank you.